Hi everyone and welcome back to I'm literally covered in swatches. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking all about the Jeffree Star Cremated palette. We are using it for a full demo and tutorial. I'm going to show you guys how I got this softer version of a smoky eye. Everybody who is using this palette, I seem to be seeing these like over dramatic, black, grungy, silvery, smoky eyes. And I wanted something a little bit more neutral and wearable, even out of a neutral, cool palette. So if that's something you're into, make sure to keep on watching. And please don't forget to subscribe because I upload 3 times a week. That's going to be the best way to stay up to date on all the fun stuff I'm posting. So if you want to see all the tea behind this palette and talk through how we got this look right here, stay tuned. Alright, my eye's already primed. I know that this is going to look like a review, but you guys can see the palettes behind me. I'm already a fan of the Jeffree Star formula, so unless there is something massively different that would cause this one to not be great, then the formula is going to be great and the review is like, it's a good palette. However, we're going to be playing around with the color story, seeing if it's worth your money or if it's just another gray palette. So I did already do a black and gray smoky eye inspired look earlier in the month, which I will link up here somewhere. And I'm going to be doing something very similar today, but I think I want to go a little bit less black and a little bit more of like that smoky light gray, as opposed to, I feel like my instincts would be to go super grungy, and I'm going to focus more on like the mid-tones instead. So I'm going to jump into, that is not the fluffy brush I want. Don't you love when that happens, when you just grab the wrong brush? So I'm going to start by grabbing a fluffy brush. Yes, this is clean. That is just stained from a dark red I used recently. I'm going to start by jumping into the shade Eulogy right here, which is almost a lavender gray. I will say there is some kick up in the pan, but that is pretty consistent with all heavy pigment formulas. With this, I'm going to dust it into the crease. And something I did set my crease down with powder earlier, or set my lids down rather. So this should not give us any issue, but let's see how it blends. It should be the same Jeffree Star formula we know and love. Definitely already getting pigment deposit. Something to keep in mind though, all of the pictures online of this palette, it does look very gray, and the palette itself looks very monochromatic, in a way that it almost looks boring, not gonna lie. However, I had to have it because you guys know I love a cool tone gray smoky eye. In person, these are not the same tones of gray. Like, I hope the camera is doing it justice, but you've got greeny grays, you've got beigey grays, you've got blue grays, purple grays. So even though on the surface, it might look like they are all going to be different tones of the same gray, I can assure you, it is not. Next, I'm going to grab the shade right next door, Embalmed, which seems to have a little bit of a reflect to it. I'm going to just... Yeah, it does have a little bit of a reflect to it, but it is a, like, I wouldn't call it a matte gray, but it's a little bit more of like a satin. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to dip with the same brush, but I'm going to go on the tip instead of the side. And I'm just going to take that to blend out the edges. Really soften the look. Switching into a packer brush, I'm going to go into Gravedigger up here, because it is a little bit more of that same neutrally blue toned gray. RIP is a little bit lighter. That's what I really wanted to use. However, it's a little bit more green, and I want this to be more of that like bluey gray as opposed to like a green gray. That was super easy. See how that like instantly took it from light and angelic to slightly grungy and smoky? That's what we like in a shadow. Going back into that first brush with a little bit of Eulogy, the first shade. Just going to make sure my edges are blended nicely. And I'm actually going to, when I get to the inner corner, feather just towards my nose, because I am a little sunburned and I am not doing a full-on nose contour today because my nose is so peeled. So I'm going to use the shadow and the shape of the eye to pinch the nose in a little bit since I can't actually contour today. Now going into a fluffy brush, I'm going to take Casket Ready, which is one of the bone white shades. It's not like Death Blow. It's not the white, but it's more of a bone white. And I'm just going to take that up to the brow bone and then slightly blend it down so that it just kind of cleans up everything around the eye. I love using a matte white for a brow bone highlight for this exact reason. Really close to the brow, it is super clean, and it just helps everything to look a little bit more well blended. All right, I'm gonna grab another fluffy brush, but like a creasy flat one, and I'm gonna take that same shade, Casket Ready, and I'm going to press that onto the inner portion of the lid, blend towards the crease, and then pull that shade across the lid. Now that that's looking really like angelic, I'm going to go back into Gravedigger and blend a little bit of that dark gray back on the outer portion of the lid, just to give us that dimension back. Yeah, see this one to this one? How we got a little bit more of that framing in? Taking a super tiny detail brush with that same shade Gravedigger, I'm just going to build up the outermost portion of that dark gray, and I'm actually going to run that towards the crease. Now I'm going to take Hearst, the black, with like next to nothing. I'm going to take the smallest amount on this brush, and I'm really just going to concentrate it on the lash line, just really far down here. And then once I feel like there's no product left, I'm then going to blend a tiny amount up towards the crease, but really making sure that it's still more of a dark gray shade. I don't want it to be at all intense enough that you can tell I used a black, because black shadows tend to get super overwhelming very quickly. And unless I'm doing a black smoky eye, my favorite way to use them is just to ever so slightly deepen up a shade that I want to be a little bit darker. I'm actually really happy with how this is coming out. Now, if you want to keep it with the bone white shade on the lid, all you would have to do is take a little bit more of that white. I'm going to do it now just so you can see, and just build it up a little bit more to keep it as that like matte white smoky eye. I'm going to use that as the base, but I will be taking one of these shimmer shades on top, just because that's the vibe I'm going for today, but you don't have to. Now, before I commit to the lid shade, I am going to grab a black eyeliner, gel liner specifically. This is going to be Black Magic from Beauty for Real. It is a black gel liner. And I'm going to line, and I'm actually going to tight line a little bit as well. Now, because the top is so crisp and clean, I'm going a little bit heavier on the liner down below because I do want it to be a little bit more grungy. So I'm going to grab a thicker domed brush, and I'm going to go into Gravedigger again, that dark charcoal color. And I'm going to start at the inner corner and blend that shade towards the outer corner. Again, this is like the darkest shade we're going to use, but we are going quite smoky with it. Then going back into Eulogy, the medium gray, with the fluffy brush from earlier, I'm going to blend starting at the middle of the eye. I'm going to blend around and take it towards the outer corner. And now the fun part. I'm going to take the shade Casket Ready, that bone white shade, on my super fluffy brush. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take that around the gray to soften it and clean it up a little, because I want this to be vibrant and I want it to be intense, but I still want it to look nice and well blended. Okay, now that we have that definition we want, I'm going to go into a flat brush into Hearst, the black shade, and I'm just going to take that right very close the waterline, really like almost stamping it into the eye. Because I do want that ring of a nice dark black around my eye. Now just to tie the whole thing back together, I'm going to take a little bit more of Eulogy, and I'm just going to blend the outer corner into where we took the lash line. Because you see how the lash line kind of went up a little bit more? I want to make sure that I am taking the top of the eye out to meet it. Okay, so for the final step, well, you have two options. One, you can take a tiny bit more of the matte white and you can press it over the lid and give yourself this really like high contrast white lid, black lower lash, smoky eye. Or, I'm doing that as a base. I am then going to load up on the shade Diamond Ashes down here, which is a super vibrant shimmer. I am going to spray that with setting spray so that it is highly reflective. But I am going to wet it first. And then I'm actually going to take that on the entire inner portion of the lid. That is really vibrant. Okay, so my choice of brush was not smart because it is starting to fall out everywhere. So instead, I'm going to switch to a smaller brush for the other side, just to make sure that it is the brush and not the shade. It could just be a very high fallout shade. That is also a possibility, but I want to make sure that it is me and not the shadow. So it's definitely a combination of the two. I'm still getting fallout even when I'm going a little bit more carefully with a smaller brush. But that being said, just, you know, if you're going to use this palette or this shade specifically, which is super frosty, you're just going to want to make sure you start with the eyes. This is not a problem I have with just this palette. There's a lot of palettes that because they're so high pigment, it can really get overwhelming and do quite a bit of fallout. So I'm just going to clean up any of that fallout by basically just blending. Going back into Gravedigger, I'm just going to blend a little bit more of that charcoal gray towards the lid, just to make sure I do get that contrast and definition. All right, I'm going to go and throw on a little bit of mascara and a lash, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I actually am skipping the lash just because I realized it's an eyeshadow tutorial, and throwing on a lash means you're not going to see really any of this. I am going to, however, grab a lash and like put it in place so you can see what it would look like with a lash on. However, I will not be applying the lash because I find that that's going to defeat the purpose. So, just going to throw this in place so you can see how it'll look with a lash on. Okay, so that's kind of what the eye would look like had I glued a lash on. This is it with a lash, this is it without. I love how a lash does make things a little bit more dramatic, but I also don't necessarily think it needs it. I think it's simplistic enough with that foiled white base and that bright popping inner corner, which is the same shade just wrapped around, that you really don't need the lash and everything else. Though the lash does help if you are trying to like amp up the drama. And now that I've played with the palette, I do have a few notes. So the mattes are absolutely beautiful, super blendable, and they work brilliantly. As far as the metallic, like the normal metallic shades, I did swatch a few, like this one, which is Death Certificate. They are super vibrant, high shine. And then the shade I used on my inner corner today, which was Diamond Ashes, which is more of that like emoliated high shine. It's almost like a cream glitter. Those are the ones that have more fallout. So if you're looking for something super high shine, the metallics won't give you as much fallout as like I got today, but those like creamy wet shades like Diamond Ashes, or even this one right here, Pallbearer, they are so vibrant and so high shine that they do give you a little bit more fallout. So just something to keep in mind when you're using this palette. Be careful. I do recommend if you're going to use this at all, use your eyes first, or do your eyes first, because you will end up with some fallout. That being said, the palette is absolutely beautiful. You guys know I love a neutral smoky eye moment. So this like angelic gray, I didn't go super smoky or super grungy, but I still love the way it turned out because it's like a beautiful level of neutral without it being like a black smoky eye or like this look right here. Super editorial lines. Like, you don't have to do that. Sometimes you can do just a soft, neutral, smoky-ish eye and be just as beautiful as if you did the whole 9. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to let me know down below. Let me know what you think of this palette, or did you get it? Are you planning on getting it when it restocks? Let me know, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!